know that you are all highly ambitious. You all want to succeed. You all want to make money. You all want to help people. But how do you do that when there's too much to do and not enough time to do it? You're already stressed out. And I know that right now interest rates are high. You're probably feeling like there's just not enough business and you feel like you might be competing. And so then how do you do more? How do you achieve what you want when you already got enough stress to be going on with, right? And I totally get that. I'll just tell you that, when I was in a very, very grueling Ph.D. program and academic career many years ago, I had a very similar experience of just feeling like I am competing for scarce resources. I don't know if you know, but academic jobs are few and far between, and you really are competing for very small slices of a pie. Like, that's kind of what it feels like. And I didn't know how to handle it then, but if I knew then what I know now, it would have been very different. Because even though the circumstances might be the same, how I would approach it and how I approach a lot of things now is very different. And really the thing that changed for me was learning the science of stress. Did you know that there's science behind stress? How many of you knew that? Or did it just feel kind of like a personal affront? No, there's actually a science behind it. And what I am going to offer you is that there's two things you're going to learn. First, there are some kinds of stress that you just will not be able to eliminate. And there's certain kinds of stresses that you can eliminate. That's why I'm the stress less coach, not the stress never coach. It's impossible to eliminate stress, but I want to teach you how to know what are the things that you don't have control over that stress you out, and which things you do so that you can feel more empowered. And then that's basically how I help people. I help my clients literally reduce their stress by 50%. And I want you to think about, what would it be like if your stress was 50% less? What would your life be like? What would your work be like? Your relationships? So that's what's possible. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. So I want to start first by talking about the science of stress. And let's start with, as living beings, from the one-celled amoeba to us, there is one fundamental question that is constantly driving every being all the time, moment by moment by moment. Right now, am I safe? That's it. That is the fundamental question that physiologically, whether you're asleep or awake, our body is always checking to see if we're safe or not. And if the body feels safe, that's when we get to sleep, eat, procreate, and use the toilet as animals. And if you evolved enough to have a little bit more higher brain, that's actually also then when you get to play, you get to create, you get to be expansive. But if the body says, I'm not safe right now, that's when we go into fight, flight, and freeze. I'm sure you're all familiar with that term. And the key thing is that this is all unconscious. All unconscious. It's just happening in our bodies, right? So the key thing is when the answer to the question, am I safe, is no, that's when we have stress. And unsafety creates stress, right? And it's unsafety in the body. So when an animal senses a potential threat to life, as animals, we are going to automatically secrete stress hormones. We're going to secrete cortisol and adrenaline. And the key thing about cortisol is that that's the stress hormone you need in order to then secrete glucose, so you have energy in your muscles. So you want to be able to do that, right? And basically, thanks to evolution, those animals that responded faster were the ones that survived. So we are here thanks to whatever predecessors we had that were like, right? Okay. Now, we humans have the same biology. And again, we have a really fast automatic response to perceived death threats. Now, I get we don't have a lot of tigers in Raleigh-Durham, but we still have plenty of things that could kill us. Imagine you hear a gunshot. Imagine you fall down and break you fall down and you don't know how hurt you are. Imagine your kid is about to be, a car comes out of nowhere and your kid is right there. That's gonna trigger the cortisol and adrenaline response, and it's going to make you wanna protect yourself and the people you care about. So this is the stress we need. We absolutely need this. And it helps us survive it, right? But the thing is, most of us, all of us, I'm just gonna say all of us, we're chronically overstressed by things that are not death threats, okay? So what's actually stressing us out? It's gonna be undone tasks. Think about it. Every single one of you said, what's your goal? Well, it's this thing that I wanna get done. It's this thing that I wanna get done. Jim was maybe the only one who said, oh, I get to celebrate now that my son got into school. But I don't think anybody ever said, I'm gonna enjoy my life this week. That's my goal. Everybody was like, I gotta get done that thing, right? And for those of us who are high achievers, the undone tasks feel as threatening as a tiger about to kill us. But they're not really tigers, right? How many of you get stressed when you walk into the bedroom and you see a pile of laundry on the bed that's unfolded? I'm gonna admit I do that. Or you walk into the kitchen and there's dishes in the sink. It's like, especially if you're already stressed out by other things, it just feels like one more thing. But it's not a tiger. Neither are the messages that you are all missing right now of potential clients. They're not tigers. So what you want to think about is that the stress hormones kick in whenever we think about undone tasks. And even though it's not a tiger chasing us, I mean, we want to admit it feels like it, doesn't it? When you're thinking about those deals you want to finish or those 7 things you want to finish, it's like that icky feeling in the body is the cortisol in our bodies, right? So I want to explain why the undone tasks feel like death, because it's not like there's something wrong with you for mistaking a pile of laundry for a tiger. I really want you to get, there's nothing to be ashamed of. But why do they feel like death? It's because for pack animals, getting kicked out of the group did mean death. I want you to think about, imagine, there's scarce resources, you're in the cave, and you're not doing a good job pulling your weight in that cave. What happens if they kick you out of the cave? The tiger's gonna get you. And again, we are the descendants of hundreds of millions of years of evolution that built in this fear of getting kicked out of the cave, of not fitting in, of not being good enough, means that you could die. So of course it starts to feel that way, that if I'm not able to get those deals, well, I don't know, maybe Scott's gonna fire me. I don't know, because I'm not bringing enough money. I'm gonna lose the job. I'm not doing enough, so Jim's gonna let me go. Right? I'm gonna end up in a van down by the river. And then what's gonna happen? So what you wanna get is that we haven't evolved out of this fear. And that means that we wanna take seriously that when we get triggered like that, it's real. It's nothing that we should be ashamed of, and it's not a tiger, right? So how do you resolve this, right? The fact is that these are the things we have. So we want to learn the difference between the stress you can't control and the stress that you can. So the stress that we can't control is going to be triggers. You guys all know about Pavlov's dogs? Have you heard of yeah. So basically Pavlov has these dogs who start to associate jingling of, like the nurse would, whatever the lady who would feed them, she would have these keys on her keychain. And so if they started to hear that and associate with that fact, like when I hear the key ringing, it's gonna I'm gonna get food, so they'd start salivating. And then that's how Pavlov figured out, conditioning. So triggers are things like, I hear a bell and I think food's coming. It could be, I hear my name, everybody think about it, like the one thing we're trained to, if you hear your name, it's gonna be a bell. And there's also going to be negative triggers. Like, I don't know, if I get a note from my boss saying, meet me in my office now, that might trigger fear. Or what did I do? Or what happened? Something's wrong. So I want to give you an example you all might recognize. Okay? How many of you have pets? All right. Here's the thing. The Amazon delivery person rings the doorbell. Cat runs under the bed. My cats run under the bed. I don't have dogs, but when I did, the dogs would rah, 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 rah. So the dogs were fight energy, rah, 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 and the cats were fleeing energy, right? And notice that the Amazon delivery person is not a tiger, right? But the cats can't control that, and the dogs, they're just primed, just like we are. And the bell is it's a trigger that points to potential danger. So again, it's not like it's really a tiger, it's just we get triggered, right? And unless I do something to the cats, like say I stand by the doorbell and I have a treat, and then I ring the doorbell and I keep giving them a treat or something, they're never gonna get over it. Just never. But they could, but I'm not gonna do that. They can just run under the bed, right? But there is something that we can do as animals that we do have control over. So that other one, the trigger, we have no control. That is just going to trigger us. The thing that we have control is to check and see if it's actually dangerous. What triggered us? That's where our power is. So if we go back to my cats under the bed, what are they doing under the bed? Imagine. What they're doing is they're checking to see if there's actual danger. They're like, well, I'm not hearing anything more. I kind of hear mom walking around, excited about her new shoes she just got. Then they come out from under the bed, they shake out the cortisol, they stretch, they scratch, because they have all that cortisol in them. They do release it. Dogs do the same thing, right? And then after they do that, they come out and they're basically back on the couch. So this is exactly what we are designed to do. We're designed to get triggered, which we can't control, and we are designed to pause and check if it's danger. If it's not, you shake out the cortisol and adrenaline and get back and deal with stuff, right? So I want to kind of point out, how do you release the cortisol? Because it was there. I saw the laundry. I'm stressed out. How do I release the cortisol? Well, if you're an animal, there's two things that you want to know. You release the stress hormones. That's where things like, I'm sure you've heard about heavy, breathing. And I'm going to go through some of the fast exercises you can use in your own life. But, if you're ever angry, the fastest way to release anger is to go and shake like a dog. I promise you, it's fast, because that's what we're designed to. Crying, if you're really, really upset, we came out crying. There's a good reason for that. When we cry, you get cortisol in tears, and the sobbing releases adrenaline. But yet we've been told we shouldn't do that. I'm just letting you know there's actually a reason we do that, right? And so then and animals cry too, by the way. They cry, they howl, they scream, they scratch, whatever. And the second part that you learn is that then you connect with the pack. Safety. Again, we are animals, pack animals. When we are afraid and we see, oh, okay, it's not actually dangerous, let me reconnect. Reconnect with the people who you feel safe with. So those are going to be critical lessons. Now I want to give you a quick summary of this, because then I'm going to show you the process that you're going to be able to use anytime you notice you're triggered. And so I want to show you this process, the steps, the summary, because I want you to see where we get stuck as humans. Okay? So, step one, there's a trigger. It generates the stress hormones. Step two, if it appears dangerous, we go into fight, flight, or freeze. Then post-danger, we release the stress hormones and reconnect. Number four, safety. We get back to doing what you're doing. That's it. This is the cycle of life for all creatures. All. Anybody who thinks I should never be up here, you're living in a delusion. You have to know that this is constantly going to happen. And so then what happens is, for humans then, it's going from stress to going to calm, flow, and creativity. And notice the circumstance didn't change. It's how we got triggered. Then we saw it wasn't a danger, then we calm down, and then we deal with it, right? That's the goal. So here's what we can't control, that part. Again, trigger, can't control. Doorbell ring, run under. What we can control is this. So that's the part I want to teach you how to implement, because that is how you will stress less, okay? And I want to explain what unfortunately happens to us humans, and I'm sure you're going to be able to relate. I can relate to this. It happens lots. What happens is that we get stuck here. How many of you can identify with that? Right? And when we get stuck there, though, we never get access to that. This part that we want to be in flow, creative, handling problems, we never get access to that, and this thing grows. Okay. And then this is what happens when we stay in fight, flight, freeze. For those of you who are just kind of aware of how cortisol and adrenaline works, it's not just that it feels uncomfortable. It impacts us negatively. Don't we get reactive? Like that's when we get mad, or maybe we freeze, or maybe we avoid because we're so stressed out. We don't respond to the situation, we react. Maybe we waste a lot of energy and burn out. How many of you have done that? I have. Then what's happened biologically, like I said, you get cortisol and adrenaline and glucose because you never release it. That's what accumulates. So, any small trigger like a laundry out of place is going to feel like a tiger because it's just accumulating. And that's what leads to metabolic disorders, poor health, right? Part of what they talk about, like diabetes and heart disease, it's an accumulation of cortisol, inflammation, and glucose. All of these things are critical if there's literally a tiger about to attack you, but that we should not be experiencing chronically. Yeah? So the good news, you can learn to interrupt the triggers.